Hollow Knight is an incredible game about a bug who wields his nail and explores the depths of Hollow Nest, meeting many different characters, finding new places to explore, and defeating countless bosses. This game has become one of my favorite games of all time, and I've made it my task to complete everything there is to do in the game. In Hollow Knight, if you travel to the Royal Waterways and break a certain wall, you can discover a secret area called the Junk Pit. Inside this area is a coffin needing a key to open it. After opening this coffin, a body falls out, and you can use your dream nail on this body to bring you into this brand new place called the godhome. In this place, you complete challenges called pantheons, defeat a certain number of bosses in a row, before facing a brand new final boss at the end of each pantheon. These bosses include the Nail Masters Oro and Mato, Paint Master Sheo, Nail Sage Sly, and the Pure Vessel. These pantheons slowly get more difficult as you progress through them. Once you finally beat all 4 pantheons, you unlock a secret 5th pantheon called the Pantheon of Hollow Nest, which requires you to beat every single boss in the game in a row, including a more difficult version of the game's final boss, the Radiance, called Absolute Radiance, often considered the hardest boss in the game by most fans. I decided to make it my quest to defeat this 5th pantheon and sit on my throne atop of Hollow Nest. However, I knew this quest wasn't going to be easy, because when I looked at the percentage of people who completed this challenge, it only came in at 3%. I saw this number and decided to take it as a challenge to make it certain that I was going to be part of this 3%. Without further ado, this is how I conquered one of the most difficult challenges in Hollow Knight, Pantheon 5. Considering the low number of people that have completed the 5th Pantheon, I knew that some practice was going to be needed. I felt very confident in most bosses in the run, however there were 4 bosses that I knew I had to try and master before attempting some runs. Those being Nightmare King Grim, Markoth, Pure Vessel, and Absolute Radiance. Just a little side note, I did already reach Absolute Radiance before recording this video. However, I was nowhere near defeating Absolute Radiance consistently, so still a lot of training to do there. I decided that Markoth would be the first boss I tackled, as he's one of the bosses I'm the least confident in, outside of Absolute Radiance, of course. Markoth and Absolute Radiance are so difficult due to their constant attacks and their limited platforming, both things that make it really difficult to get damage in at a constant rate. Unfortunately, I tend to not be the most patient person, so when bosses require a little bit more moving around than attacking, sometimes I get greedy for that little extra hit. This training arc was going to fix that habit. I've been playing some of my Markoth practice footage in the background for the beginning of this video, in case you hadn't noticed. Markoth was the boss I spent the most time training on, surprisingly, with around 50 minutes of total training. This really surprised me, as I didn't think I'd have as much trouble as I did when I was fighting Markoth, but every time I ran up his ascended form, I'd be put down in like 30 seconds. I would just get so frustrated at how hard it was to try and damage him. When you think there's an opening, all of a sudden his shield appears and he hits you into the void for double damage. I didn't even get my first win against Markoth until about 15 minutes into the practice footage. But it was a bit strange. I'll just let this one play out. Oh my god, I jumped into it. I literally beat it. Oh my god, I actually beat it. Oh, it gave it to me. This was strange, as even though he did kill me, I sent a Shade Soul right before I died, and it managed to kill him right before it teleported me out of the attempt. So, even though it was technically a win, it didn't feel like a win in my book. After this attempt, there is only death, after death, after death. Until finally, nearly 30 minutes into the footage, this happened. After a long 30 minutes of training, I had finally secured my first win, serious win, against Markoth. Something I forgot to mention is when you face an ascended form boss in the Hall of Gods, you actually take double the damage you normally would in the Pantheon of Hallownest. So even though this was my first attempt at actually beating him, I was actually beating him as a more difficult version than he would normally be in the Pantheon. So I'm actually over-prepared rather than under. However, after this victory, I would proceed to go another 15 minutes of training without another win, and I would rage quit and move on to my second boss of training, Absolute Radiance. Absolute Radiance is a weird boss for me. Whenever I'd fight it in the Hall of Gods, I never had too much trouble fighting him. However, when I would fight him in the Pantheon 5, I could just never seem to beat him. Every single time I get to that final fight, I would just choke immediately. The hardest part of this fight for me was the part you're viewing right now. It's the platform phase. The platform phase would just trip me up, like I said with Markov. Just the lack of places to stand on and the constant dodging of projectiles just leads to a lack of getting in hits. And this lack of getting in hits would cause me to make some questionable decisions for sure. The part I was most confident in was the final phase, where you have to jump from the platform to platform, trying to dodge his heat-seeking balls, while trying to get the last little damage in to end the fight. However, this would be my downfall in most of my training, as I would lose a staggering 3 runs to this final phase before finally getting my first defeat on Abzrad. This holds the record out of every single boss I've fought in this game for the longest time it's taken for me to defeat this thing once. It took a wild 42 minutes for me to get my first defeat on this boss. The thing that stands out the most about this run is how well I performed on the platform phase. I took really minimal damage and healed at correct times, so it left me a lot of health for the climb and final double platform phase. I will note that my third phase was definitely not great. You can also see me missing a jump right there. But the thing is with that phase, all you have to do is get to the Sword Rain phase and you can heal about 6 HP, so that wasn't really too much of a struggle for most of my runs. The difficulty was on this platform phase, as healing is very difficult with the limited number of places to stand, so he'll accidentally hit an attack on you sometimes while you're trying to heal. Watching this footage back, this might not have been the most clean 4th phase, but you know me, you know I'm a clutch guy, you know I don't choke. Look at that, weave, 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 look at that. I finish up this stage unharmed and make it up to the next stage, the climb. The climb is relatively easy because you can heal most of the time, except when you actually try to heal, a random beam just smites you down. But for the most part, this phase really isn't too much trouble, you know, just jumping, shadow dash through the beams, don't get it, pretty simple. But now my heart is beating, as I know I probably have this in the bag. Going into the fight with 6 HP, final phase, I should have this wrapped up. But I've already had 3 runs end to this final phase when I said I was already the most confident in this phase. So I began to choke a little bit. Just a little bit. However, with the fate of the universe on the line, you can call me Iguodala, because I would hit that shot. And with that, I would finally get my first Radiance kill. Ideally, it wouldn't have taken me 42 minutes to get my first kill, but I didn't care at this point. I was just glad to see that victory screen. Though I did know more work was due, so I ran up another one just to see, you know, maybe 2 in a row. And you'll never guess what happened. Yeah, I beat it 2 times in a row. And with these back-to-back victories, high on life, I decided, hey, why not run up some Pantheon attempts? Boy, was this a mistake before attempting my Pure Vessel and Nightmare King Grim runs. A popular thing that people tend to experience is called flow state. This is what I thought I was in, but oh boy was I so wrong. But past me wielded his nail, stepped up to the Pantheon, and ran up his first attempt. A beautiful attempt, ruined at the very end. My 2 Radiance fights in a row with wins down the drain. I pondered on my loss a little bit, and then I tilt queued another Pantheon run. It wasn't a terrible run, but I then choked to the Pure Vessel. It was a fight I was so confident in, and after this, I decided I was never going to lose another fight again. The 2 fights that I practiced in this segment are the Pure Vessel and Nightmare King Grim. Pure Vessel, obviously, because I just had a run ended to him, and I was pretty pissed. Nightmare King Grim was more of an insurance policy, as wasn't really too difficult of a boss, but I wanted to make sure I didn't choke before I got to Pure Vessel, so I tried and master him. This training session was really odd because it was really quick. I actually radianted both of these bosses, which was really surprising to me. Nightmare King Grim not so much because I was pretty confident in that boss, but Pure Vessel really surprised me. It only took me 3 attempts before I radianted Pure Vessel. This training session was relatively quick, only being around 10 minutes long, and that radiant was really confident for me, as, you know, I beat him with no hits. So I attempted a couple more, but then decided to switch over to King Grim. King Grim got put to work, man. He was radianted on my very first try. Nah, I'm just playing. But I packed my immediate next attempt. And with this victory, I decided, hey, let's hop into another Pantheon attempt. After a successful mastery attempt of Nightmare King Grim and Pure Vessel, I decided to run up my next Pantheon attempt. And boy, was this a good one. After defeating Pure Vessel, Vansky TV was on the run of a lifetime. He was close to setting personal records, but could never quite get there. This bothered Vansky, as he felt he was a capable Hollow Knight player, but could never quite bridge the gap. This never stopped him though, as he would do Pantheon attempt, after Pantheon attempt, after Pantheon attempt. Every day, he was that much closer to breaking through his personal barrier. And on August 5th, everything would change. Let's go! Let's go! Come on! Don't play with me! Don't play with me! Come on! Come on! Come on! Come on! Come on! Eat that shit! Eat that shit! It was over. I had done it. I had finally beaten Pantheon 5. There was only technically 3 recorded Pantheon runs for this video, but it took me about 6 attempts to even unlock Radiance, so this was nice. I grabbed that achievement and became one step closer to doing everything you can in Hollow Knight. If you made this far in the video, hit that subscribe button, and the like button too if you enjoyed. This is my first project like this with long editing and just this type of story type video, so hopefully it went well and you guys enjoyed. I will be making a video on when I beat Steel Soul and then when I 100% Steel Soul. That'll probably be lumped into one video, but I haven't quite done that yet, so that'll be in the future. I also want to make a video on completing the Pantheon with all bindings done, so I can get, I can complete that for the little extra challenge. But that's all I have for today. Again, thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. If you stuck around this far into the video, you're awesome. I appreciate you. And with that being said, see ya.